afternoon, PMAppers, and to our dear viewers. Welcome to the most awaited program here in PMAP, the People Manager on Cam. This is the online show of the People Management Association of the Philippines, or PMAP, the premier organization of HR professionals, people managers, and leaders in the country. Thank you for joining us once again in this afternoon field learning about people, leadership, human resources, innovation, and business. As always, this is your host, Lawrence Ko of Monde Nissin Corporation. I'm currently head of learning and people development of the organization. And I'm going to be your anchor host for today. I am very excited to be with you this Friday afternoon as we have an exciting episode lined up for you. Remember, each episode is dedicated to insightful discussions about people, human resources, and business. This May episode is our fourth episode for 2024, focusing on technology driven workforce. So kindly join us and stay tuned until 2 p.m. And feel free to connect with us by sharing your comments or perhaps questions in the comment section. If I'm not mistaken, we're currently live on our different PMAP socials. So we're live via our YouTube channel. We're also live via LinkedIn, and we're also live via Facebook. And perhaps we can ask some of our viewers if you can just go to the chat and greet us a good afternoon. No? And of course, as always, if you have any questions, no, the people manager on cam is really a good opportunity for us to have fruitful discussions, especially later on after our invited resource speaker, no, has shared with us his insights. All right, and we'll be doing that up until 2 p.m. Now, perhaps we can start and get the ball rolling. This month's essential topic, as I've mentioned earlier, is technology driven workforce. And joining us to talk about this particular topic this afternoon is the Human Resources Manager of Leighton Asia and the current chairperson of PMAP's Labor Policy Reforms and Industrial Relations. I would want to invite everyone to join me in welcoming our resource speaker this afternoon, Mr. Adrian Godwin Perez. Good afternoon, Adrian.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. I'm very honored to be part of this conversation this afternoon.
Great, great. Good afternoon, Adrian. Perhaps before we start, might be a good opportunity, for you to introduce, your organization, perhaps, or what you do in your organization. But it's going to be easier for our audience, for our viewers later on, to also put into context what we will be discussing this afternoon.
All right, sige. Basically, I form part of a very strong history of engineering and construction companies. No, Leighton Asia is part of the CIMIC Group. It's basically a group based out of Australia who has a parent company in Spain. So it's a bit of a big conglomerate in terms of ENC. And you'd expect that in construction, we'd have to always be on point with regard to our execution. And most of the time, we do use technology in facilitating a lot of work that has to happen on site. So this could be lifting, this could be cement pouring, and all of these things all happen with the help of technology. So my work in Leighton Asia basically assists in the implementation of the human resource aspect. So keeping people engaged, making sure that everyone is safe. At the same time, we administer the necessary implementation of tools and activities related to pay and, of course, performance and career planning and, of course, talent management.
Mhm.
Um, yes, so that's what we do in Leighton Asia.
Thank you, Adrian. So I think that's a good way, for our viewers to also understand that our speaker is a true-blooded human resource professional. And just for context, Adrian, because majority of our viewers, of our audience, would also come from human resources. Of course,
Mhm.
there are some of them are line managers, and as always, as they always mention in the chat, they're very excited to know more about the topic that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. So I'll go straight to that, Adrian. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, the topic for this afternoon is technology driven workforce. No? And we've experienced that technology, not just technology in general, but technology specifically in the HR front, in the people management front, are evolving in a relatively fast pace. no? And some of our viewers, no, and even really the members of PMAP, no, they are really looking for best practices, no, and they're looking for insights from leaders in the industry, no, on how they can put to best use, no, the resources that they have in the respective organizations, no, to be able to procure the best technology. So perhaps the first question that I would want to ask you, Adrian, no, like, we know that emerging technologies are not just here to streamline tasks, no, but they are also meant to foster creativity and innovation, no, within the workforce. So can you share, like, what are your thoughts, no, what are your insights, perhaps some experiences that you've had with your organization, no, in leveraging, no, technology to be able to foster creativity and innovation?
All right. So basically, in our applications, no, in our things that we do at work, it really starts with things that make it easy for employees to do their work. So tools are basically here to create life easier for us when we are at work. So most of the time, we take it for granted, no, and most of the time, it's already in our fingertips. But we fail to recognize how we fully utilize all of this. So think about your access card, diba? If your access card, for example, has RFID on it, um, siguro mga 10 years ago, I discovered that having to use your access card not only to open the door would also be used to um, tap your badge onto the printer, for example. So it could let you know and have access to which specific items you're printing, let the computer or the printer know that it's actually you who's using it. So it charges to your account and it helps with a lot of cost tracking. So in terms of other activities naman, no, technology has always been around, lalo na yung mga word processing and PowerPoint activities na nakita natin in terms of sending the message across. It's very important for us to understand that sometimes we underutilize these things. It was during a session with Microsoft that I understood na kaya ko palang magtanggal ng background from an image or kaya ko palang gumawa ng animation or 3D representation ng isang bagay, no? With the tools that Microsoft PowerPoint offers. So I'm not plugging Microsoft specifically, and I understand that there are a lot of different platforms that offer this. But there's actually a lot of things that you can do where you can actually export it to become a video, create a lot of different engaging materials, no? And you can even create infographics, publication materials that you can use for awareness, for important things that need reminding. Lalo na when COVID hit, and I think it's very relevant to say that technology has played a very significant part in connecting all of us while we were all so disconnected. And I think yung biggest power that was given to us was the ability to communicate across different distances. And all of those things, I think, is one of the biggest advantages that technology offers. But then again, no, one of the things that I really appreciate about technology right now is that you can learn wherever, whenever, diba? And any specific topic that you feel that you can access through technology, you can basically have at your fingertips. And yun yung hinihintay kasi natin eh, di ba? And sometimes we can't have training face to face because of any specific restrictions, or if your training cannot come to your location only because you're divided by islands, for example. In our case, we're divided by so many different distances because we're working on so many different projects. And the way that we're able to meld all of these HR practitioners on the site, for example, or even the people that help us in delivering the services that we provide, we gather them through Teams and we basically onboard them with what's happening in the organization, business updates, all of these activities, and all of the action happens sometimes in that very little pocket of time that you spend at work. And it's through technology that you can get that done without having to lift your self up from your seat. Diba? So sometimes all of those things we take for granted. But then again, no, some people use it for games, use it for quiz nights, and all these activities that really create meaningful engagement. And in the people management business, syempre, you'd see that people who have a very low engagement also have very low productivity. And if they start to become happy with the activities that they're going to be doing, the creativity and the innovation starts. So whenever we experience a lot of different issues and difficulties with getting the message across, people would sometimes comment to us, "Sir, make your publications more engaging naman. Give more color and life to the things that you're creating. So we take those comments into note and we receive them in the same technology that you're using now. So I think there are a lot of different ways for us to be able to use this, but definitely they are here for us to utilize at the same time, make our lives easier. And how we get the message across is very important as well.
Thanks for sharing those insights, Adrian. No, I was taking note of like a lot of things that you were able to mention. And the very first thing that really struck me was when you mentioned about existing tools and technology such as yung mga badge natin, no? And
Yes.
a lot of times, no, and very common to within our fellow practitioners in the HR industry, no, that we tend to look outwards. We tend to look kagad, ano ba yung bago out there that we do not possess, no? When in fact, there are a lot of opportunities. There are
Mhm.
existing tools and technologies, no, that have now updated, no, and are now currently offering much more
Mhm.
than when we first initially procured them. No? So that's definitely one of the things na I think I can really also recommend, no, coming from the insights that you shared, no, to our viewers and to our audience. So that's really great. When you mentioned then at the tail end of your response, Adriano, about like low engagement and how we can leverage technology now to improve engagement and therefore improve innovation and creativity. Perhaps a good follow up there, no, and I'm sure our audience would also appreciate it, no. If you could share like perhaps stories, no, that you have encountered in your organization or even outside of your organization, no, where you've seen that utilization of technology, no, especially the newer ones, emerging technologies, no, have resulted to an increase in engagement and therefore an increase in innovation and creativity. Would you have some stories regarding that, Adrian?
All right. So I have a bit of a funny story because I don't drink alcohol at all. But there have been a lot of different sessions where I get invited to Numans, as in E, letter E. Yeah, so you see a lot
Inuman.
of different exactly. So many different people, want to be engaged because when you're around food, you can just can't stop talking about good times, right? And when you're making memories, all of this makes sense. But during sessions when, for example, I need to connect with the person that I have in Cavite, for example, and a person I have in Bulacan, we'd have to be able to create these moments where we feel like we're in the same room. No, it's so difficult sometimes to visit them only because of the dynamic kind of our work. And sometimes when I try to visit them, they're not there because they're in the site and they're actually monitoring the people. So it's sometimes an issue for us to be able to gather ourselves and arrange our very busy schedules for these things. But when we do, we find ourselves pleasantly surprised about how technology is helping us connect. And maliban doon, no, I think there are other platforms, for example, that offer gamified learning experiences like polls, for example, quizzes, like yung mga activities on Mentimeter, all of these things that create word clouds, for example. When you're training people, and sometimes kasi you think training, oh, kailangan ko na external na person to do this, and I need to be face to face with this. Over the pandemic, what made our organization resilient in terms of having to engage people and keep them updated with regard to how the pandemic was hitting all of us and making sure that we kept people safe was also through technology. So it's not just the computer itself, no, it's chat, it's all of these accessibilities that we now find. And sometimes the simplest two-way radio really helps a lot in terms of delivering message across very long distances. And sometimes you cannot help but appreciate that everything has, you know, um, happened in a generation where we are alive and we can use it. So I think in terms of, I don't know, in terms of really being appreciative of it, you have to
Mhm.
also find time to know how to utilize it, make the most of it. But then again, um, when we try to leverage on the power of technology, we have to understand its benefits. So, for example, in terms of having to convince your CEO or your chief people officer about using a specific tool, you'd have to be able to generate certain kind of data, right? So, how much time has been cut through the use of technology? How much how much innovation has it sparked, how much creativity has it produced in the lifetime that you've been using a desktop technology. So all of this forms part of the very essential way of understanding the fruits of technology when you use it. At the same time, the opportunities that you haven't been using all this time. So all of those play into a very compelling story for how people experiences or employee experiences develops around technology as well.
And I definitely resonate with that, Adrian. No, there are times wherein sometimes yung mga colleagues natin, they just think that because they're using technology, they're now safe from being data driven. No, that almost as a magic, it becomes a substitute, to us being able to really get, the results and the impact to the business, and then we
Mhm.
just stay and utilize the technology. So you can just imagine, if we continue to share, what you mentioned, that it's technology, and then and data, when we merge them together, it makes it much easier, for us to build our business cases to our stakeholders, to our CEOs, to our chief people officers, and of course to line management, which are going to be highly likely to be our primary stakeholders. So
Exactly.
I definitely resonate with that. Thank you for sharing, Adrian. No, and now that you've mentioned Inuman, I can still remember then, like during the pandemic, I think I was able to join at least one, Inuman, virtual Inuman. So we go to now to this topic, and this topic is very hotly debated, I would say, and people are really passionate, and this is the topic of work life balance.
Mhm.
And I think you were able to touch on it lightly earlier, so let's go and try to go deeper, try to dive deeper into this concept of work life balance in technology. So from your experience, or if you can share some insights, like how are tech driven approaches, like for example remote work, digital collaboration tools, are empowering our employees to achieve better work life balance and ultimately, job satisfaction.
Right. Believe it or not, more and more people actually come up with studies that inform that, during the time when people were working remotely, they observed a lot of peak in productivity. Sorry, I might have my internet cutting, but I hope you can still hear me.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I don't know, when I was reading up about the topic also, you'd see a lot of different studies come out with. Yeah. So sorry, I don't know if it's just me or technology is trying
That's
to
just,
come in the way of
the audio is just getting a bit
sending a message.
choppy, but we can still hear you, Adrian.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. Okay. Yeah. So again, no, different studies came up with different outcomes in terms of productivity over remote work. But then again, what we need to really understand here is that sometimes we have to take a deep dive into the personal lives of the people that we're working with. In the situation for the pandemic, before you'd see, before the pandemic, you would observe about if you're coming from east of Manila, for example, you'd normally take an hour to 2 hours to get to work, right? And you'd take the similar number of hours to go home after that. And you sometimes get frustrated about how much time it actually takes away from your life. Now, when the pandemic happened, we realized, oh, wait, those 2 hours I used to prepare for my next meeting, prepare for my morning, be able to jot down all my to-do lists and execute the activities that I need to do without the distractions of those water dispenser conversations or even those hallway conversations, right? And you'd appreciate a lot of top management saying, you know what, over the pandemic, I was into meetings, but I can also carve out a specific amount of time for myself to be able to walk around my house, be able to jog my mind to do something different and perk myself up for the next part of the meeting that I'm going to take. And it's very interesting sometimes that people rarely carve out time for themselves whenever they're on remote work, only because they're compulsed to actually work. And sometimes they think na I have to really give back to the company. So I have to put in more hours in terms of having to work. But then again, you're only asked to be coming to work at least 8 hours a day. There have been situations where companies shifted to flexible working arrangements, and we see how a person that starts work at 7 p.m. Is supposed to end work at 4 p.m. But then again, sometimes you see emails creeping up at around 11 to 1 p.m. only because they find it more comfortable to be working around hours where their flow is at peak. Diba? And sometimes you can't achieve that in the office kasi after 12 o'clock, you feel, oh my gosh, I'm very sleepy. Diba? And the work environment might be so dull that it's actually inviting you to, close your eyes for a bit. But then again, if you're working offline or remotely, what would happen is that you have all of these tasks lined up for you. And it's actually about a discipline and an understanding for your ability to contribute. Kasi whenever you're at remote work, you'd have to be able to output a certain number of results, diba? To legitimize your work. At the same time, if you have any specific tracking software with regard to timekeeping, for example, I know that Microsoft offers that as well. Some apps over Microsoft Teams allows that too. It gives you the flexibility to say that I'm working now until this time, and I'm letting my managers know that I've already done my deliverables. All of those things are going through technology enabled platform. So you form documentation, you create a history of results, and you create a very good track record of performance. So whenever performance evaluation comes around, it's not so hard to come up with the details that you need to um, convince management about how your performance went during a season of when you work remotely. But then again, I want to gravitate on um, the importance of the agreement and the discipline in having to do remote work. Because we can't be clocking in at 8, standing up doing laundry until 10, diba? And then you'd clock out at 5. So that's basically creating a waste of time. So I think it's very important for us to understand that there are boundaries whenever we do this. But then again, no, those boundaries when we box them within the 8 hours that we're supposed to be at work, we're also giving a lot of time and dedication to the life that happens outside of those 8 hours. So, however it is implemented in your organization, I think it matters that there is a clear understanding for the expectations of management and of your deliverables. And so we see that, for example, the Romblon State University informs that there's a higher satisfaction for remote workers. And we see that some companies did implement hybrid setups, for example, after the pandemic was lifted. And you notice that um, people who had 3 days at home or 2 days at work, for example, created a lot of different output that you'd not normally see if they were, droning on for straight 5 days at work. But then again, it's really different for everyone. I tend to say that there has to be an awareness for your ability to create something out of the time that is given you. And at the end of it, we have to also be able to realize that there is time for family, there's time for you, and you can't mix it all up when you're working in remote situation. So you can't have your dog barking, you can't have, your phone in one hand, your headset in another, doing all of these things because it's not humanly possible to really multitask. But then again, compartmentalization and creating those routines, for example, really help in creating a very good work-life environment at work while you're at home.
Mhm. So the awareness really, I think that resonated to me the most, Adrian, especially for people managers, no, very critical for us. Kasi yun nga, as you've mentioned, no, it's very critical for us to make sure that both the ease, no, and the convenience of being able to do digital collaboration, no, na hindi naman siya mag-exceed and mag-step outside of the boundaries of work. No, kasi we've seen, no, and I think like post pandemic, our perhaps over reliance, no, to digital communication tools makes it easier, no, to a fault, no, for people managers, no, and even with just colleagues, no, to send emails, to send messages, no, at weird hours of the day, no, and really, no, being able to find that work life balance. While there are definitely some benefits of having this technology, no, accessible at our fingertips, it's also very dangerous, no, and meron din
Yeah.
siyang risk of overstepping such boundaries. So perhaps, no, and that would just segue me to my follow-up question to what you shared earlier, Adrian. So what would be like some tips that you can also provide, no, on some end naman, kasi yan din yung ibang mga concern that we've been hearing from our members, no, na how can we change the culture, no, kasi there's this emerging culture wherein people are uh, again people managers, no, specifically, are being online, as they call it, no, like 24 by 7, and it makes it more difficult, no, for employees to feel that there is a separation between work and life. Meron ka ba mga practical tips, no? Or perhaps some cases that you've had, if this is something that you were able to tackle within Leighton?
Um, Well, what I would be able to say and be proud about is that leadership has really put a premium on understanding the boundaries at work. It really stems from the top. And whenever your leaders are supportive of that mantra, because we have an Australian parent, and work life situations in Australia, for example, are very stringent. No, and we've yet to be able to adapt that, and a lot of other companies have already been able to do that. But it really comes from a strict mandate from leadership to recognize the value of rest, for example, the value for family time. And all of this stems not just specifically from technology, but from a very human source. Diba? And they too have family. They too have time that they need to dedicate for things that they need to do at the house, for example. And whenever they do remote work, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just stepping out because I need to make a cup of coffee." And that humanizes all of it, right?
Mm.
And despite technology connecting all of us all throughout the day because of these specific things that we have to do, you'd see that there is also a very um, personal approach in terms of how you're supposed to do it. So if I were to, um, create a list of what tenets I need to have for that to happen, first you have to have the support of your leadership. Second, you'd have to be able to create an agreement between your employer and yourself that I'm going to allocate this kind of work. Here's my daily task. Here's what's expected of me, and here's what I will try to deliver to exceed that expectation as well. At the same time, you also have to be kind to yourself because sometimes we border on worry or anxiety. Am I doing enough at work? Am I creating the perfect environment so that I could be recognized and promoted in a very remote kind of work? So it's actually become commonplace for us to think that if you don't clock out of work exactly at 5:30, for example, if you start work at 8:30, then you're not being productive. You're not creating good use of your time. So extending yourself beyond those hours makes us worry because sometimes your health suffers, and you come to meetings with clogged noses, for example, because you haven't slept the night before. And we want to make sure that everyone is in a safe environment. We're already living in a very VUCA kind of world where it's all very unpredictable and complex, that it creates a lot of different anxieties for everyone. And sometimes it translates into sickness, for example. We want to make sure that whenever people come to work, they are happy. At the same time, they're empowered. They don't have any fears of being judged about, remotely working. And sometimes it's hard to separate ourselves when you know that people who are transactional have have to actually be in the office. But that's the nature of the work. So people like those that could work outside of their workplace. Lalo na they bring their laptop everywhere. They monitor different projects. They monitor different things. Whenever they have to take a breather and eventually have to work from home, they also connect in a way that allows them to um, plug themselves seamlessly in very important things, but knows also how to disconnect after.
And I think that's very critical, very important that you mentioned at the beginning na the mandate, no, the mandate of the value of rest, no, as I've written down in my note, no, should come from management, no, should come from leadership. Kasi yun nga, it's
Yes,
all about role modeling. No? If
exactly.
they are not able to communicate that, no, then it's an open world, no. It's free for all, no, for line management
Mhm.
to do what they think, no, should be done, no? Because there's no specific direction, no? And there's no principle to be held by these line managers, no? So definitely a good way, no, for us to see, no, the balance. Now, while of course at the end of the day, the use of technology at times can be very personal, no, kasi we can choose to ignore, for example, no, yung mga applications that are constantly giving us notifications, or our phones that are constantly buzzing even after work hours, no. But then at the core of it, no, it's really the balance between management setting the tone, and then the discipline, as you've mentioned, no, the discipline of the employees, no, of even leaders, managers, no,
Mhm.
line supervisors, so that they would be able to really keep the difference, no, or the boundaries between life and work. So thank you for sharing that, Adrian.
Yes.
No. I think a good next question would be more on looking at the future, no? Or perhaps baka nga hindi na lang ito future, eh. Baka nga it's already starting to take shape, no? So, and this is of course in the context of technology, no, being so influential in changing, no, or shaping, or even reshaping, no, the roles, the jobs that we have, no. So siguro in a nutshell, what in what ways do you think, no, the rapid advancement of technology is reshaping traditional job roles and skill requirements? And then perhaps later on we can talk about how can we then address it, no. But dun muna tayo sa how are you seeing it, no, in your industry, or perhaps within our practice in human resources, no? How does technology reshaping existing and traditional job roles?
Yeah, when you mentioned rapid advancement, it immediately triggers a sense of fear, no, sometimes. Kasi when you can't keep up with something, you feel like you're missing out on something, or you're sometimes, falling short of the expectations that management has of you. It's quite daunting to think about how technology has become so empowering that people have been using it, to the extent that they get ahead in life. So whether that be side hustles, for example, whether that be leveraging on information that was not previously readily available to you, it makes you worry. But then again, no, what we hear about all of these things around AI, for example, or the new technologies that emerge to make life easier, is that you end up becoming a user of these technologies. And that's one critical thing that you have to be able to realize always, that you end up becoming a user. So you always have the potential to become a person that manipulates and applies all of these technologies in your work. Diba? So whenever people ask me, for example, sir, do you think that your work could be replaced by AI in the future? I tell them no, because people management is exactly that. You're managing people. Diba? AI cannot manage people only because there are a different multitude of values, interests, and of course beliefs that surround people. Not to mention the basic rights that we have to observe at work. So whenever we talk about how all of these things and innovations that stares in the face, is trying to threaten the way of life or the way of how we work, is actually something that we don't see any specific threats yet. So in our business, we do apply a few robotics. We also apply a lot of different heavy machinery and tunneling methods, for example. At the same time, we also use AI to help us map out paths inside specific buildings, so that we would understand if it's structurally sound, even to the point where it actually recognizes hairline fractures or hairline structural damages, for example. All of those things are being innovated, and sometimes the naked eye can't be really reach there, right? So it becomes something that our people use to make sure that the things that we do, the things that we create, and the things that we maintain and repair, for example, are safe for use. So while it's rapidly evolving and all of these things sometimes makes you wonder what's the next best thing, what's the next new feature out of this specific machine. You'd only be excited with the concept of wait, I can't wait to really use this so that it can improve lives or improve the service that we're creating. And it's not really threatening a lot of the work that we do in construction because all of it is actually very manual. But if you were, for example, in the back office and you'd think, oh, wait, an algorithm can actually create workforce projections in terms of the projects that we're creating. Or sometimes payroll can be automated through different platforms already without significant human intervention. You know, a click of a button can sometimes generate a lot of different Excel functions. And I would not want to pretend I understand any of those, right? But as I see it happen, all of these things encourage me to say that people can actually learn from this. They can start educating themselves to keep up with the kind of technology there is out there. And sometimes you want to be able to manipulate that kind of data only first because it's interesting, second because you want to recognize those kind of things. And you can't be locked in a state of fear whenever we think about how technology is taking over so many different things in our lives, right? So think about the smartphone. It used to be a block of, pangkaskas na yellow, and you lug it all around, and sometimes you get very disturbing, thrilling sounds that happen around you only because you have no option to mute it. But now phones actually have an option to be muted. You have so much opportunities for personalization, and you can actually even create routines with the phones that you currently have right now. Right. So at the click of a button, you can have it open different apps, post social media, search for the best things that you need to do. So now think about how that applies to work. When you open your phone in the morning, you see a lot of different articles that help you feed yourself with information that you can then apply to your team. And that's very significant. Whenever you want to motivate yourself about what best practices there are, and you have the usual tabs like Forbes.com or Inc.com or all of those Harvard Business Review articles at your disposal, you wouldn't have been able to access all of that without technology, right? So you don't have to fear it. It's just a matter of you understanding how to use it at the same time, be able to leverage on whatever is within your grasp. Because sometimes if it's not there, it's only now a matter of searching through Google or through any of the search engines that you prefer, that you actually find so many different things to leverage on the work that you do. So in fact, we also had one of our um, uh, digital design managers demo creating uh, an estimate of a room. And I don't fully understand how he did it, but there were four specific pages that he was going through. And this was with the help of AI. So he was inputting prompts about create for me a design of a room, create for me a bill of materials, create for me a rendering of these materials. I want the chair to be white, for example. And he did that all in the span of 15 minutes while there were 150 people watching over Teams, of course. So you'd be amazed about the potential there is in technology if you know how to use it. And every single day, we get amazed with the engineers that create imaging and structures that you normally wouldn't see because you'd see polished blocks of cement, right? But these people are creating the structures and frames for the infrastructure that we're creating. In this modeling, for example, which isn't very new to the industry, but it's very new to the Philippines, has been creating a lot of different amazing impressions. So that now the Philippines is becoming, at least in our line of work, the Philippines is becoming a very hot place for this expertise to be used outside. In fact, one of our digital engineering branches here in the Philippines actually cater not to the Philippines, but to our sister companies in the US, in Australia, and in India, I believe. So there's so many things that you can do and so many things that you can actually offer when you know that you can use that rapid advancement to your advantage too.
Thank you, Adrian, for giving us a glimpse. No, it's particularly interesting to me. No, not being in the construction industry and the construction field. No, and you being able to share, like how like for example, no, yung how AI and technology are helping your engineers improve designs, no, etc. And how also given even if the context of the industry, no, of construction being very manual and very labor intensive, no, there's still this rapidly evolving utilization of technology and AI, not just in the back office but also in the core work of the industry. So that's really really interesting to hear and really interesting to visualize. So perhaps the next natural question for people, now that uh, for example, and this is pretty common, no? People would go into university, go into college, they would study, no, and then when they get into the workforce, they just realize that because of technology, the last 4 years that they spent studying perhaps no longer applies, no, the knowledge or the
Mm-mm.
skills no longer applies when they enter the workforce. So how can like individuals, no, or organizations, students even, no, can stay ahead in this particular evolving landscape, no? And you can put it again in the context of your industry, no? How are you using, no, and how are you advising, no, perhaps, or how are you preparing your workforce, no, your labor force, to make sure that they are just one step ahead, no, at the very least, no, doon sa improve ng technology.
All right, so I think it's very important that they stay hungry because, like you mentioned, 4 years of college sometimes, outdates what specific technologies there are, and your previous orientation for what kind of technology you were using in college might no longer be applicable after you've come out of it, right? So there has to be this hunger, and it has to be, targeted to specific things. Like you have to be hungry for knowledge. You have to understand that there are different platforms now that you can use, different surfaces, for example. Like it's no longer the keyboard and the mouse. It's sometimes your hand drawing all of these things, right? And sometimes you also have to understand a healthy hunger for skills. Because for me, for example, my background is not specifically in psychology, and I couldn't have entered the human resource practice if it were not for the people that believed in me. So these skills I had to learn, sadly, and it had to be a lot of trial and error. My political science background and my research background basically informs me that I have to be critical about everything and that every cause has an effect, right? So I also had to be able to learn compensation management, talent management, all of these different philosophies that we enter into how we manage people, lalo na when you're thinking about adult learning experiences. All of those things have to be learned. These are skills. And what's good about that is if you already have the attitude to create that necessary hunger for you to be able to get ahead in the field that you've chosen, you create a very good environment for you to thrive, right? So I'd also encourage a lot of these young people or those who are young at heart, who are still very curious to find the right kind of network because the kind of network that you have dictates also the trajectory for where you want to be in life in the future. And even if you are in your 50s, for example, you still have a lot to be able to contribute. And I see amazing different things that I wasn't, as diligent as I wanted to in exploring a lot of different functionalities with the Microsoft Office, which I see my boss doing. So he's about to retire in about a year, for example, and he hasn't stopped wanting to learn, right? So all of these things you have to really have a healthy hunger for, and I think it matters also that the leaders that you have create the right kind of inspiration for you, so you can also understand which areas you'd be able to improve with their guidance and their mentorship. So a healthy level of feedback is very important in receiving all of the noise and be able to filter that because sometimes so many things, so many instances try to distract you from all of this, and it puts pressure on you. But then again, no, when we think about it, when we write it all down, which things can we control? Kung hindi natin siya makontrol, if we can't really control it, we have to take it out of the equation and control the things that you can only. Make sure that you can leverage on those things that you find would be able to uplift your marketability, your ability to be credible in your field and in your profession, create that, sense of impact. Because at the end of the day, whatever it is that we do, we're doing it not just to be here in the present, but we're here to add value. As people managers, we want to be able to see that people that we mentor, that we coach, would also grow up to see themselves be able to coach others, create fulfillment for themselves in the way that you also planted that seed of hunger in them. So it feels like so many um, conceptual things. But then again, if you put it into practice, you'd see all of this falling into place only because you were intent in having to create that very good environment for yourself and having to curate that very important situation in your life where you wanted to make a difference. So while technology is here for us to make lives easy, um, because if you think about it, no, the lever and the pulley, for example, were very revolutionary inventions. It's just the same way with how technology is doing it now. Microsoft Teams, this exact platform that we're sending knowledge through, and having to be able to share our experience makes me proud that I'm in this generation, being able to create value adding insights for the people that might have needed to hear this, or those who feel that they need to sharpen their sights a bit onto what and how they use technology for.
Thanks for sharing, Adrian. No? And I think there's again that balance of having the personal, individual drive, and as you've coined it, as we mentioned it, no hunger. No, and then at the same time, very important as well, no, for leaders to be able to create that environment, no, and for leaders to be able to serve as an inspiration. And when you were talking about that, I was just really thinking, no, like for example, about our JP map, no, and that really, no, is one of the core uh, messages that usually, our mentors within PMAP, within the organization, are always sharing with them, like having that particular hunger, continuously improve, and to always go back to the mandate, of what we really are aiming to do and aiming to deliver as people managers, as human resource practitioners and individuals. So thank you for sharing that. And I think at this point, no, we were able to go through, no, like the full spectrum of like some of the factors that would enable a technology driven workforce. So we're able to talk about at the very beginning, no, we were just discussing about creativity, as simple as streamlining tasks, technology that our employees can use to streamline tasks, no, and then how technology can level up more so that they can inspire creativity and innovation. And then after that, we talked about work-life balance, and then of course at the tail end of our discussion, we were talking about how technology is shaping and reshaping the job landscape, and all of the insights that you were able to share, not only from your experience specifically as a human resources practitioner, a leader in the field, but also very specific to your industry, was really really insightful and valuable for us and for our audience. As much as we would want to really go and discuss more, Adrian, I think looking at the time, we only have around 7 minutes left. So perhaps we can start, we can start concluding by asking you, what can you this and this is usually what I ask our guest resource speakers, given that the majority of our audience and listeners, are fellow human resources practitioners, and in the context of the topic technology driven workforce, what advice can you give them, something that they can immediately do, like after we close the session, after we close people manager on cam for this month, and then they go back, it's just 2 p.m, they still have 3 hours to 4 hours at work, something that they can do immediately, within the day or perhaps tomorrow, so that they can really apply, what all of perhaps some of the things that we've been discussing for the last hour or so. Any advice to them?
I would really advise everyone to understand the data that is available is in front of them. No, all of this data is speaking to you, and it's waiting for it to be used. And whenever you conduct that conversation with management, when you have that man com, and you have to sit about what new thing we have to be able to deliver through technology, you'd be able to see that, oh, wait, I have an opportunity to highlight this kind of data, make sure that people are now engaged, no? Because data speaks a lot in so many different times, no? You end up wanting to drive a point, you want to influence and be able to leverage the conversation in a way that it feeds your people agenda, but you don't have, the right ammunition to be able to drive that point across. So this data, now that AI is available, now that technology is making it easier for you to access all of it, constrain it, take a hold of it, make sure that you're able to create a story out of it. And that really inspires a lot of different um, possibilities for how you now curate that data to make it a story, to make it really actionable and practicable in the workplace. So I hope everyone was empowered with the sharing that we had this afternoon, and definitely we want to be able to send a message that the world of work is changing. We have to be able to wake up and understand our opportunity here, and technology data that we have creates a lot of different opportunities to us to create a meaningful outcome for not just you, but for the employees that we have working with us on a daily basis.
Great, great. Thank you. In just barely an hour, no, we were able to cover a lot of things. So thank you so much for your time, Adrian, on behalf of the BMC committee of PMAP and of course the team behind People Manager on Cam. Very, very thankful for the time that you've given us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
And of course, we're looking forward. I'm sure, no, we're both very active in PMAP, so I'm looking forward to have more personal, individual collaborations with you, no, and of course with our respective committees. So thank you once again, Adrian, and we wish you a great afternoon. Thank you, thank you. There, great. And so that concludes our discussion. No, big thank you once again to Mr. Adrian Perez for sharing such valuable information with us. No, for our viewers and for our listeners. And that brings us to the end of this month's episode. We trust that you've gained a wealth of knowledge as always. And of course, until next time, we would want for you to stay curious. To our viewers, thank you so much once again for tuning in with us. Tune in again next month for the latest topics and discussions in the people management world. Again, my name is Lawrence Ko of Monde Nissin Corporation, and this is People Manager on Cam. May you all have a great afternoon. Bye bye.